Above all else, freedom requires courage and trust, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. But first, I want to tell you a story. The other night, a bunch of us were playing some MechWarrior, and one of our friends had to leave unexpectedly. And I'm not going to mention who it was because he's worried about losing his job because he lives in the fascist dystopia of Australia. The reason he had to leave was because one of his neighbors thought that he might have had the been committing the crime of having people over because they overheard him talking while we were playing our game. And so they called over the COVID Gestapo to raid his apartment without a warrant. Or as he put it, it was like a bunch of Nazis going through my cupboards looking for Anne Frank. He does not live in a large apartment, and yet the police were there for 2 hours. Think about that. No warrant, no crime. My friend has been doing everything that he's supposed to do. He has his food delivered. He doesn't go anywhere except for his work. He stays at home playing video games, and because he's not outside doing anything active, he's gained weight, and his health has suffered as a result. He's doing exactly what the Australian government wants him to do. And yet the fucking police go raid his house, raid his apartment for no reason, just because somebody called in a complaint and said maybe he might possibly have some people over. And when it was obvious that there was nobody else in the apartment, they stayed for 2 hours anyway, searching. So let's talk about how this applies to us here in America. The reason that we have a free society is because we had people who had the courage to put up with uncertainty and the courage to take on personal responsibility for their own actions and for what happened to them in life. And they had the trust in their neighbors that their neighbors would look out for them as well. That their neighbors, we trust that our neighbors won't go call the COVID Gestapo. We trust that our neighbors will take, appropriate precautions and look after our best interests. The big difference between the American people and other places in the world is that we understand that the government's job, the politician's job, is to sacrifice the individual for the sake of the group. And we don't like that. We're a nation of individualists. But a nation of individualists, we believe that our individual freedoms are more important than the group well-being, but this only works if we have the trust in our neighbors to look out for us. My friends need to trust that I won't endanger them with my personal actions, and we must have the courage to face difficult situations with uncertainty. Because the government is going to look to maintain order. They want to maintain their power and their control. They're not going to look after the individual person. That's our job. We have to look out for each other. And if we don't want to end up in a surveillance society like what's happening in Australia, where they're locking down their entire society over a relatively small number of COVID cases, certainly small compared to what's happening here in America, we have to have the courage that we're going to get through this, and we have to trust that we're going to help each other through this. Because if your courage fails, and if you start to give up freedom for the false promise of security, you're never getting that freedom back. And that is what will destroy America. Thank you.